She is a passionate leader with 24 years of industry experience in creating, leading, and hosting leadership experiences, programs, and courses. She is a global leadership coach, dynamic facilitator, keynote speaker who shares her belief and passion for developing future leaders and teams. She is none other than Ms. Caroline Benedet. She also has her own global conference present and podcast called Thriving Matters. And today she's going to share us her important thoughts on an important topic called self-care isn't selfish. And this session will explore some of the science behind well-being, as well as some strategies we can use to maintain and grow our self-care positively. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to you, Carrie.
Thanks, Anusha. I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks, everybody. And wherever you are around the world, I'd just like to honour the traditional owners of the land on whose land and tradition we live and play and lead. And so that's part of being a global leader, isn't it? Acknowledging what it is that we have in place, what our heritage is, what we can learn from each other, no matter what shape, size, colour, faith, language we are. As my kids say to me, Mum, you call us the licorice all sorts, and I think leaders around the world are a bit like licorice all sorts. That's a confectionery that is based on licorice and sugar, and it's brightly coloured, different shapes, but I think it's a great way to look at our diversity, but also how to be included in what we do. So I'm Carrie. I was Chris and Caroline, so just so you know, I used to get into trouble and they only ever call me Caroline when I was in trouble. So it's Carrie, and I'm very happy to be have met Gladys last week and to be looking forward to what she's got to say as well. So first thing we're going to do, while I change over and share my screen, first thing I want you to do is to just bring your hand up in front of your face and have a look at it. This beautiful hand that we have. Now, I'm fortunate to have two. Just bring up one, and I just want you to take a moment to breathe deeply and just focus on the handprint that you have, your magnificent, unique, original handprint that you have. Then just take a couple more breaths just to settle you down, because some of you would have raced in. You may have been on Zooms, you may have been working, you may have fed the whole family, you may have been to the gym. No matter what you've done, take a few breaths while we just share the screen. Let's do this. Okay. And so why I'm going to ask you, what I'm going to ask you next to do is to actually then put your hand up, turn it around, put it up, and either you can put it on your computer screen, you can put it on the wall in front of you, might be this, but I want you to raise that hand up and give yourself a high five. You're here. You've had a day where no matter what the day's brought, give yourself a high five, right? Just give it to you. So there's method in my madness. What we'd really like you to think about now, and whatever it is that you feel is your definition of a high five, I want you to pop that in the chat, okay? Just pop it in, your initial thinking. Do you have a definition of what a high five? What does it include? What is it about this thing called a high five that is universal, is global? We often see it, particularly around Olympic time, around marathon time, World Cup time, whatever it is that we do for sport. But just think about, what's your definition of a high five? Think about, well, who uses it, where, what, where, why, when, what else comes into play for you when I say to you, what's this thing called a high five? So let's have a look. All right, so one of one of the things that is really pretty important, here's our chat. Let's have a look and see. You know, well done. Thank you so much. Love all the answers. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to shout out to Jonathan Shack in Perth. I didn't expect to see you here. Hi, Jonathan. So, yeah, Safa, well done. Look at this, feeling good, validation, appreciation, connection. Oh, my heavens, appreciation. Look at this, well done, sharing joy, you know, cheering everybody up. You know what? One of the amazing things about a high five is that often we get them from people who don't even know us. They actually see us doing amazing things like running a marathon, or, you know, City to Surf in Sydney here is coming up in August, so I'll be doing that. I'll be walking it, by the way, I won't be running it, but I know that I'll be getting high fives. You know, anywhere we go around the world, this magic high five is all about that, and sometimes it's from people we don't even know. Now, the reason I'm going to get you to use this notion of five fingers on our hand, because it's a great trigger for us when we're feeling like, you know, we haven't looked after ourselves today, or we're just exhausted, or we've been totally surprised or knocked for a six. We can often look at our hand and go, aha, I have got some great strategies in place. So why are we talking about a high five? Well, this is why. Let me see if I can get that to go. Okay. Now, I don't know why it won't, oh, there it goes. Why it won't share the other way. Okay, I don't seem to be able to just get rid of that. Oh, there we go. So the reason that we're talking about this notion of high five is that being aware of ourselves is really critical to our self-care. Emotional intelligence, just the name sometimes frightens people. I think it was the best thing I ever learnt about, and so for many of you, you will have a good notion of what emotional intelligence is. And one of the competencies that I'd like to talk about tonight is this notion of self-awareness. And this is what the definition is. We're thinking about how aware we are of how we feel. Are we aware of how we're feeling in a particular situation? Do we understand the impact our feelings have on our decisions, our performance, and our behaviour? How conscious are we of the role we play, whether we are in a management role, whether we're leading our families? And what I should really say to you is, my belief is that we are all leader learners, that we lead at particular times in our life. Some of us choose to continue to lead and develop that leadership. Other of us move in and out of different roles and have different responsibilities. But we can influence and manage our emotions. And that's the biggest, I think the biggest thing that I learnt when I was a young mum was that if I had more of self-awareness, I probably would have parented a little bit better in those early days when I was on my L plates. So this is the definition of self-awareness from the company that I have a certification with. It's Genos International. And really what we're talking about when we talk about being aware of ourselves, it's our ability to perceive, understand, express, reason with, and manage emotions within ourselves and others. And some of you will go, that's okay to say this. But really, once I learnt to be more aware of myself, I then could key in and be more aware of those that I'm working with. So I could understand their points of view, understand perhaps some of their particular behaviour traits, and I could also learn how to express myself. More importantly, though, for leaders, when we apply emotional intelligence to our leadership, it's all about how intelligent we are at using our emotions to get positive results. And in this day and age, all the literature and research coming in from the big research houses is saying to us, people are the profession. People and the well-being of our businesses, our teams, our organisations, and ourselves is paramount to dealing with abrupt, change and uncertainty. So we're in the right place. And for educators, for teachers, wherever we are, this is a major plus. We actually need to not just understand ourselves, but our students and those peers that we work alongside. So let's have a look. When I said to you Genos International was the certification I had, I didn't mean I'm certified into, you know, and I need to be looked after in a care facility. It's something that I keep up to date. So Genos talks about six core emotional intelligence competencies. And the reason it's so important to really look at self-care and understand a little bit about the science of emotional intelligence is the productive states. We actually want to be in a productive state to make the best decisions, to be present with people, to be genuine, expansive in our thinking, to be resilient, empathetic, but also empowering of ourselves and others for what we're doing. You all can recognise that when you're in the unproductive states, sometimes you are feeling quite indifferent. You might be insensitive to people's remarks. You may come across as untrustworthy or disconnected. And for your decision making, you could be very, very limited in how you deal with change, deal with expectation, and then be able to progress a project or a particular job, something that you've been doing. So we're really looking at being in a productive state. So the high five for me is a great, easy example of something that we can use to help us go, you know what, Carrie, you've got it today, girl. You're going to be brilliant, even though I may have had a couple of hiccups that have thrown me for a 6. I can still bounce back. I can use some of those resiliency skills and go, I've got a trigger here, I've got a strategy I can use, and remind myself that high five yourself, because not everything is bad. One of the other interesting things about your emotions is that your negative emotions or your negative feelings, the ones that really make you feel very limited and temperamental, or you're really feeling down, those negatives are contagious. And they're not just contagious to keep you in a particular unproductive state, they're also contagious to those around you. And so I just look and go, there's ways, things that I've built into my day that I know are good for my own self-care and my own well-being. So we're going to have a look at some of those as well. So I hope you're travelling all right. I'll just go back to this. So we're going to use the 5 again. And I'm going to say to you, if you've got a pen and paper in front of you, maybe you've got a whiteboard, you've got something to draw on your desk, I want you to think about what you have in place around your mental or your cognitive thinking skills, what you've got in place around your physical or kinesthetic movement, how physical or what type of exercise that you like to do, what you've got that is already in place that is basically a non-negotiable for you. What do you have in your social areas? You know, what are your relationships like? Are you all things to all people? Are you avoiding conflict or having open conversations with people about certain things that are on your mind? Or how intentional you are to put in some play and rest and renew into the workday. Then have a think about your environment. How do you set up your environment to work and play in? What does that look like? What are your routines and rituals, etc.? And then what it is you have in place for your spiritual well-being and self-care. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to have a look at that 5: mental, physical, social, environmental and spiritual. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to draw the 5 and pop those in as sections, and then start to just jot down what it is that you do. So I'll give you a couple of seconds. I can see heads down. Well done, team. Okay, and then put the word stop and start down the bottom there. And just think about, is there something has already come up for you that you might want to stop? Or perhaps there's an area where you think, I might need to start something. So we're talking about proactive strategies here. So for things in our, in the mental or cognitive space, it's about what type of thinking strategies do we have? How can we reduce, say, the type of news or information that's coming in that's affecting the way we start to think? Do we balance reading time, reflection time? How many sort of boundaries do we have? If we know that somebody will talk to us for 50 minutes, when you say you've only got 5, what type of things do you put in place to be able to work there? For your physical areas, how's your sleep? Sleep is a massive indicator of our well-being and affects us. So average out how many hours sleep you get, or are you very aware that you need more? What type of exercise? What type of food are you putting into your system? What's your breathing like? Do you do any mindfulness? If we're looking at our social areas, we talked a little bit about relationships. Are there any relationships we need to improve, that we could actually do some really good work in looking at that? What's our environment like, our rituals and our routines? What's our music like? I'm big on music. I've got a playlist. I've got an EI playlist that I use to help me balance out my day. And around our spiritual, what deliberate practices do you have? Are you seeking new ways to complement what's already in place? So it's quite a nice little audit, yeah? Now, the reason I've gone down this track is that part of what we like to do, I'm just going to move that down there because there we go. Part of our makeup and what happens for us relies on what we call our RAS, our reticular activating system. And it's basically like a hairnet of neurons, a network of neurons that sits sort of over our brain. And when this network is actually jammed with negative thoughts, our beliefs and maybe some assumptions that we're making, not based on all the information we have, or experiences that we've had in the past, we can stay stuck in the past. The RAS is a gatekeeper or a bouncer. It does a huge job every day. It polices about 34 gig of data, which is about 3 years of phone data in 24 hours. It is massive. So if you get a headache, you're probably thinking, what? My RAS might be working overtime today. But what it does, this network blocks out about 99% of what's around us from reaching our conscious mind. What does get through is the sound of our name. So someone gets Carrie or Caroline, I can pick that out from in a room. That's how good my hearing is. The other thing that gets through this 99% are threats to our safety. And also whatever I think is really important to me. So what my values are based on, or what I'm totally believing in, or what I'm developing at the time. So one of the tricks to use, one of the questions to use when we feel threatened, or we feel a little bit unsafe, or we feel that there's some pressure from those around us or the outside world, is we can go back to this question about what is important to me. Only we can change the way our RAS works. So if we continue to stay in thoughts, negative thoughts, or negative experiences all the time, that's what we will believe as our truth. So for us to change that, we have to be aware of our negatives, be aware of what type of situations put us into what I would call a bit of a dive, and also then go, well, what is it I'm going to be changing? And one of the techniques that is fantastic is also based on a 5-second rule. So here's an example. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. So for those of you, and for me on particular days when I go, oh, I don't think I'll get up and I'll get on the bike and have a ride today, or I'll go for my walk, or I'll go around to the gym. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a way to, when we wake up, to actually go, that's it, the day's on and I'm ready for it. It's a great technique. It's also based on the 5. I think it's pretty cool. So there's another technique. And the reason I'm telling you about the RAS is because we've got a vagus nerve. Part of our whole makeup is the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in our body, and it releases dopamine, and it gives us information about pain, temperature, and touch. Now, if our brain is stressed, it flips into a survival mode. There's no new positive information coming into the higher brain to create new skills and new memories, only threats. So we know that we can receive, when we're threatened, the fight or flight kicks in for us when we get an amygdala hijack. The amygdala sits here, you've got 2 of them, just sort of on the side of your head here near your ear, but it can be very usefully manipulated by breathing techniques to move us into a place where we're not threatened or feeling that our thinking is narrowed, that we're going to be harmed and that we have to get away from something. The breathing can move us into a place where we think more openly. We think that there are more solutions. So about a 6 to 7 second time from when we get a shock or a surprise or we feel threatened, we can actually move ourselves to put ourselves into a place where we can calm and settle ourselves. So one of the solutions to calming and settling our body is to put our hand on our heart. And it's giving it basically a high five. It's a rest and relax high five. So a hand on our heart is calming ourselves before affirming that we are okay, that we're safe, and that we're loved. And it allows our RAS to be receptive then to mantras and affirmations. It's a bit of a snapshot there on what we're doing. So what I'd like to do is just pop into the chat, see what we've got there. Beautiful, thank you very much. I'll get out of that. I'm just having a look. So let's have a look at this one here. Beautiful. So let's, the other technique I'd like to do, because time's moving on tonight, is to put a couple of these techniques together. So I really like this notion of using 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The alarm goes off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I bounce out of bed. When I wake up, it's an adjustment. Aha, instead of saying, oh no, it's another day, I don't want to get out of bed, we can actually flip this into positive thinking and say, I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm loved. Give yourself the gift of making your bed. It's actually an action, it's physical, and we're doing something, setting our day up for, I'm out of bed, I'm not getting back in that bed, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And then take yourself off to the bathroom. Now, for those of you with a big mirror or a shower screen, get yourself into a place where you can see your reflection. You can use your phone for this as well. Give yourself a high five in the mirror. You celebrate yourself. Hi, Carrie. Oh, girl, your hair doesn't look that great today, but I tell you what, you've got it. It's going to be a great day. Gift yourself then with some self-care. Get your clothes on, don't stay in your pajamas, get the clothes on, and in my case it's usually some joggers, and off I go and do something that's healthy for me. But what we're doing with this action of the high five in the mirror, getting out of bed and acting on this, something physically, giving ourselves a gift of making the bed, celebrating ourselves in the mirror, making sure we've got the clothes on and the shoes on to go out and exercise or meditate, whatever it is that's your morning routine. We're training our RAS to be open to new experiences. we can use this to think about the day. And for those of you that journal, you can use your journal as a bit of a checklist and say, today, Tuesday, the 14th of June, I did my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I did my high five. I did the exercise or the meditation or the mindfulness. Here's my checklist, and this is what I want to do today. We can actually use it as quite a good reflective tool. So that's the high five that I think works really nicely with this notion of 5 for our hand. There's a couple of different techniques there as we go on. So let's see what we're doing. So the high 5 habits, they help us with redirecting our negative thoughts, and we can actually openly say to ourselves, I'm not thinking about that. I'm going to train my brain to think differently. I'm over those thoughts that are not true anymore. Consciously think about the positive emotions. So think about being grateful. Think about how our voice sounds and how we can have a voice, and think about the learning that we're going to be doing. You can actually yell something out, have a visual mantra and just say it out loud and just go, yes, you've got it. This brings us to acting like the person we want to be. And dare I say, we should stop apologising and flip that and say something like, thank you for reminding me. Whatever it is, instead of apologising, excuse me or thank you for reminding me. Crystal balls are fantastic, aren't they? Looking at the future, being able to meditate on small joys around us or the earth that we've been gifted with is an honour, but it also means that we can connect with people and also boost their high-fiving of themselves as well. If you're interested in something to read, there's quite a good little article here, 4 emotionally intelligent phrases leaders should use in 2022. And it's putting together the science of our brain, putting together our heart, and it produces the light bulb for us all. The light bulb being that we can be more relatable. Our relational leadership is the bonus here. These are the phrases that we're recommending. I trust you. I'm listening. I appreciate you. I'm sorry, and thank you. So it's quite a nice thing. But here's the article if you feel you're interested, coming from the Enterprises Project, and it's a current article for this year. I'll put that in the chat as well for you. And we're going to finish on this. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. I think the Dalai Lama has an Australian sense of humour because we've got pretty big mosquitoes down here. But I'd just like to end on that, and we'll have some questions. If you would like something to extend your thinking around culture, education and business, how we can be more diverse and inclusive in the way that we're leading, I'm very happy if you would like to contact me through my website or through through LinkedIn, probably the easiest way. I'd be very happy to offer you one of the masterclasses that's on our website that you can access if you're interested in just something a little bit different that we put together during COVID years, when we went around the world and we talked to people, ordinary guys and gals in leadership roles, doing quite extraordinary things. So that might be something that you might like to extend in your learning as well. So now I'm going to pop myself back up there. I'm going to stop the share.
Thank you, Carrie. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
I'm probably a bit over time.
No, you finished perfect. And I would like to request anybody, please unmute yourself if you have any questions for Carrie. Please raise your hands and please forward your questions if you have any. I would like you all to just unmute yourself and please forward your questions. Yes, Anita, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Carrie, I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this presentation. Short, crisp, and had a huge impact. And I loved, and I think I'm going to use it very often, that putting this high five on your heart.
Yep.
I wish I can create an emoji and make it. Yeah, I think it's the moment you put it, it has a very calming
It
effect.
does, yeah. It does, yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Anita. Thank you.
But Carrie, sometimes what happens is you may be doing all that which you have said, but the environment around you is so negative that probably you as an individual, you're not able to overcome with your positivity that negativity. Negative is always very strong. It's stronger than the positive.
Yep.
So how does one deal with that kind of a situation?
In a business or an organisation, there are services that you can actually go and speak to somebody about things like that. If it is so overwhelming, it becomes a choice, doesn't it? Do I stay here? Is there a way that I can leave this environment for another part of the organisation perhaps? Or is it something that I have to seek out? We can use some of these techniques as breakers for situations. Particularly, say, Anita, if I have a meeting scheduled with you, say, and we have to talk about a particular project or talk about a student that we're teaching that's got behaviour issues, it could be that I'm quite worried about how this conversation is going to go with you. So I could use some of the breathing techniques. I can use, there's another one that I find really lowers my heart rate as well. And it's basically the hand again. And what you do is you get the pointer finger on one hand and you inhale up the thumb, you inhale, exhale going down. But you do that finger 5 times. And then you run down all the fingers, but you do each finger 5 times. I had some, and I'm going to tell you why it works. I had some heart tests to be done at the end of last year, and we have a white coat syndrome, right? If you're going to a doctor or a specialist, often your heart rate's up because you don't want to be there. You don't want to find out if there's something wrong with you, right? And we have a history of heart issues in my siblings. So I'm the eldest of 6, and I thought, oh, it's probably time, Carrie, that you go and get this looked at. So they had all the machinery on me, and they said, oh, we're going to have to give you a beta blocker. You're a little bit high this morning. I said, what? I said, okay. I said, can you do one thing for me? Before you give me that tablet to take, can I try this technique? And I did, inhaling to the top of the finger, exhaling on the way down. I did each finger 5 times. I just sat there and did it, and I watched the monitors and the blood pressure go down, 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 down. And then I went and had another test. I probably would have thought this doesn't really work until a bit like doubting Thomas, I had to see it and do it to believe it. So with practice, we can do this. We can put some strategies in. So in between different triggers, we can do some of these techniques. If that's not working and it's a high level of anxiety and you need medical intervention or someone else to talk to outside of the company or the organisation or the family, well, then you have to seek that out. But the breathing is fascinating, but it's also absolutely life-giving for us in more ways than one.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Anita, for your question. We have Jonathan who raised his hand. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. And I love the self-audit that you went through. And just like your comment on this, if I may, it's my experience that people most often have the problem with the spirituality of their lives. Now, I'm not pushing a particular belief system here or not, but I've seen some very smart people who've been, they tick every box, but they're missing something. And I was just going to ask, without pushing a particular belief system, how does one, if one needs to, investigate one's spirituality?
It's actually a beautiful question. Thanks, Jonathan. I think when you look at your values, your beliefs and assumptions, that's what spurs you on to explore or investigate or remain curious. And one of the things for learning is this sense of curiosity. I was brought up in a particular religion, and there are quite a lot of rituals and practices that were very, very regular. Now, as we get older, we're all looking at what our critical thinking experience shows us, or how it's been developed. So we do seek. Now, I think this notion of curiosity and exploring is part of looking at, and I know many people who have tried a number of religions and a number of practices within those religions. So I don't think I have a one-size-fits-all answer. I
wasn't expecting that.
yeah, I don't think I have that, but it's a fascinating question, because it goes down to, basically your beliefs and values, are they learnt? Are they genetic? Are they part of the family of origin that you came? Are they part of your life experience and the sense we make? And so in my later years, I've done quite a lot of meditation and mindfulness. I've also been curious enough to look at other techniques that people are using. There are people who believe in astrology, numerology. There's a whole lot of things like that apart from our spiritual focus on a religion of type. But I do know, if you look at some of the Bureau of the census data from different countries, where they ask people for what religion they are, there has been a massive change from a number of the traditional religions to the more meditative and mindful practices, say Buddhism and whatever. There seems to be a whole seeking of a different way to live your life that incorporates a lifestyle as well. And that's not putting the traditional religions down. It's just that I think it's reflecting this notion of, we are now thinkers. We now think and don't necessarily believe everything we're told. We investigate and research and remain curious and test it out.
Terrific, thank you. The one comment I would make, and I hope this is something you gift to everybody, is to value silence.
Oh, perfect. It's true, isn't it?
It's a gift, because then you can get in touch with yourself. This is part of mindfulness, of course, but also be open to what the universe might just have a chat to us about.
Yeah. And in nearly every religion or faith or practice, there are practices around breathing and silence. Just being. Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. That's beautiful.